Hello and welcome to the program, The Dailies on Television International, where we keep you updated with all that is happening in Nigeria from our Nigerian newspaper and also from a little touch of the international world. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham and we will be looking at various stories, and I have Rachel Tanzi here with me. Good morning.
Morning, Celia. I'm fine. How about you?
Great, thank you. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can follow us there and also drop your comment on Facebook and YouTube. And you know the way we do it here. Later on, we'll open the phone line so you can also air your views. So just brace up yourself with any story that is of interest to you, and then we'll give you the opportunity to later on, air your views. And we'll be going straight into the paper, starting with the Guardian newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, FCT aid to evacuate residents of Trademore Estate. Land Use Act between powerful governors and oppressed citizenry. You can find the details on page 4. Lobbyists stranded as Tinubu relocates from Bodyland to White House. Federal government to stop funding professional bodies cancels from 2026. Adeleke senators clash over reserve space at Osun praying ground. The big story on the paper, presidency, PDP trade blames over bleak low-key celebrations. And at the downside of the paper, stock market gains 5 trillion naira in 6 months. You can find the details inside the paper on page 15. And we have a picture story showing the president and all the stakeholders praying for the Salah. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
A New Telegraph newspaper, fabrics, fake human hair top Nigeria's 1.4 trillion naira import from China. That's on the aspect of economy, so you can do well to read detail of that. Still on Financial Times, Nigeria's oil and gas industry in bad shape. You can find detail also on page 8. And on the 10th Senate, Akpabio war free, fair and square coming from Kalu. I'm not interested in Olubadan crown. I'm only interested in Olubadan crown coming from Ladoja. You can find detail on page 7 and 30. Canada to welcome more health workers. You can find detail of that story. Well, we have Canada welcoming. UK is actually turning down Nigerian health workers. So you can find detail on page 5 and 30. Week-long stay-at-home order wasn't issued by IPOP, says the spokesperson. You can find detail inside the paper. The big story for New Telegraph, protocol palaver, Governor Adeleke, Senator clash at Eid ground. The writer, Governor lives in anger over alleged assassination attempt. Bashiru sat on governor's reserve position, refused to leave, coming from the aide. I didn't see governor, I didn't know. He had observed the prayer coming from Bashiru. And then Tunde Badmus apologizes to Adeleke. You can find all that on page 2 and 26. Also, we have Sanwo-Olu hosts Tinubu governors today in Lagos. Coming from Oiboyi, don't celebrate yet. Coming from Nwafuru, still our member, PDP tells APC. And on budget, federal government halt allocation to professional bodies, with the rider decision hinge on presidential directive. Medical, teachers' body and others to survive on levies. You can find detail of that story on page 4. And also we have picture story here showing the Muslim faithful celebrating on the prayer ground, and that's all on New Telegraph newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, pension registration drops 10% as Pencom go after defaulters. Lawsuit performs first non-surgical hole in heart repair. Drama as Adeleke's 8 ex-Senate spokesman clash as Eid prayer. You can find the details on page 10. And on tariff hike, NARC awaits president's approval, plans stakeholders meeting. Cracking Benue APC, a splinter group convenes meeting to zone positions. The big story on Vanguard newspaper, presidency fires back at PDP, Labour Party over alleged anti-people policies. The writer flowing the story, PDP cautions APC, federal government alleged anti-people policy. Tax Nigerians on prayer over economic hardship. Tinubu's government lives in opulence while Nigerians groan, coming from Labour Party. PDP envoys of Tinubu's achievements in 3 weeks. A statement coming from the presidency. Tinubu taking bold steps to reposition Nigeria. A statement coming from the APC. You can find the details on page 5. And on the Eid el-Kabir celebration, CDS Chief of Army Staff vowed to tackle insecurity. Illegal sale of government property, Plateau Task Force reads riot act to developers and others. Shun ethnic religious rivalry, Tinubu urges Nigerians, says Nigeria will experience peace, stability, prosperity, and insists Nigerians must make sacrifice for country's prosperity. You can find the details on page 9. We must interrogate SDGs coming from scholars. You can find the details on page 8. NSITF resolves dispute as PAM Secretary chides union leaders. We have a column from Olufasan on page 16. And don't leave Napoli yet, Obafemi Martins advised Osimhen. This is for our sports lover. You can find the details on page 28, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper with a big story on Salah, current pains necessary, says Tinubu. Governors preach unity with the rider. President assures Nigerians of better days. PDP lambasts APC. Governors demand peaceful coexistence as Muslims celebrate the Salah. You can find detail of that story on page 2. Marketers project 700 naira per litre petrol. You can find that on page 9, and that is to start from July. No wonder I said July is actually pregnant with so many things.
Yes.
We've seen that for motorists yesterday, they have to be paying 1,000 naira now annually. We've seen that even right now, stakeholders, they're talking about NEC, the tariff hike. Consultation will be starting with the presidency in July. So a lot of things actually coming up in July. We just hope that the July will give birth to other, apart from all of this pain that Nigerians are foreseeing. But we hope that July will come with something great and fantastic, because looking at the fact that the president here is saying that the current pain is necessary, of course it will be difficult for a common Nigerian to choose such a statement. You remember they will keep saying the fact that why do Nigerians, the common man, have to keep sacrificing when when is it, or when are our leaders finally going to sacrifice for the better of the masses at the end of the day? You ask for this position, why don't you do the right thing? Some of the policies we've seen over the years or even presently looks as if it's actually to hurt the common man. But we hope that it's not just all about prayer, because prayer without work is useless. We hope to see the work. Because when we keep praying, I remember during the campaigns of all of this president, the governors and the senators, I said God will not count our prayer requests. We should go and vote. And of course, Nigerians went to the polls to actually do something. So they are hoping that the people that they have actually, put their votes for will actually do something for them. So we look forward to seeing that. Of course, we all want a better Nigeria, but then we hope that our leaders will rise up to their responsibility and also do the right thing, so that at the end of the day, the common man will know that truly this government, this administration have us in heart. Yesterday, we saw where about 4 million more Nigerians have been, declared poor from the first half, or looking at from January to May. And then we're still looking at the fact that more, 7.1 will be added if something is not being done about the current removal of the fuel subsidy, and if palliative is not being provided. And I remember saying that, I think it was 2 weeks back or a week back, where they said 8 weeks. Workers are counting down finally, and 8 weeks will be maybe in August. And by then, we are hoping that there will be no any other policy that will kill the common man before then. So we hope to see something positive coming out from all of this policy at the end of the day.
Stella, it's very easy to be a soldier when there is no war. So I want to say it's easy for the president to tell the common man to make sacrifices when he is not a common man. There's nowhere I can believe him when he says, I feel your pain. We keep saying how you are in the position of whatsoever not feeling the pain Nigerians are going through. You're in the position of not knowing the hardship of a common man. You might just hear the lamenting coming, the complaint, and you might just hear the different steps coming from the Labour Congress and the TUC and everybody in the position. However, you are not in the position to know what it truly feels to go through the kind of hardship that Nigerians are going through. What we need from you is not for you to become a common man, but to do the right thing, to put in things in place that truly would take away the hardship. And the more I see the stories on the paper, I don't see anything that is being done to take away the hardship. I just keep seeing things that would bring this hardship, because you know what? Now you're asking motorists, they are dealing with fuel subsidy removal, a hike in petrol price, people begging for transportation left, right, center, and the profit for these people in this business is low. And now you're asking them that they need to go and start registering for ownership. And tomorrow the new vice will be the people that we will have the federal road safety on the road stopping them for ownership. We will have the VIO stopping them on the road and asking for fines if they don't have all of these things. I just keep seeing policies that are just going to add more hardship. Yeah, we're going to talk about our currency floating and making it being high now as it stands, and knowing what is going on. So inflation have just been skyrocketing, and it's inevitable. In as much as for discourse planning to still backtrack the increase, it doesn't change the fact that there is going to be a hike in the tariff price. It might not be this July as it was anticipated for it to be 1st July. It might not be, but we know for sure that there is a plan on ground for tariff to be hiked, and it's going to happen. So I don't see anything being done. We have the palliative. We're not seeing it. We're seeing minimum. We've given a long period of 8 weeks, and within that 8 weeks, instead of letting things to stabilize, we keep seeing things occurring and happening that will add to the hardship, while people wait to see what the federal government will do concerning it. So I'm just looking forward to sacrifices being done by politicians, but as it is now and as it stands at this moment, Selem, I don't see anything I don't see any sacrifices being made from people in key office positions, and I don't see them doing anything that would make me feel that they can feel our pain, or that they truly have the intention of making sure that things are not hard for the common man in Nigeria.
We look forward to seeing what the presidency and the federal government will do concerning all of this. Still on the Punch newspaper, 120 billion naira USSD debt won't be cancelled, telcos tell banks. You can find detail on page 9. We will record that Telco different customer providers have been talking about the loan, or talking about the debts that banks are owing them. So you read detail of that on page 9. And coming from the World Bank, Nigeria's digital infrastructure inadequate for cashless economy. Other story on the paper, we have Ladoja reject Makande's plan. Take that story. Ladoja reject Makande's plan. Elevation of high chiefs. You can find that on page 12. Community grown over bad road and seek Abiodun's intervention. You can see a little column, the picture of how, the roads are very bad. So you can do well to read detail of that story on page 5. And we still have the story drama as Senate ex-spokesman Adeleke supporters clash at Eid ground. You can find detail on page 14. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, acting governor Ayedival urges Muslims to pray for Sig Akeredolu. Wicked loyalists call for sack of PDP NWC, oppose Tambuwal as Senate minority leader. And on food security crisis, UN warned millions facing severe hunger in Northeast. You can find the details on page 13. Saudi Al Hilal signed Chelsea goalkeeper Mendy. You can find the details on page 18. Adeleke orders arrest of Basiru as details of praying ground clash emerges. Alleges assassination attempt on his life. You don't know the meaning of assassination, a statement coming from Basiru. The big story on the Matrix, fuel subsidy removal, World Bank orders caution federal government on palliative. Without palliatives, 101 million Nigerians will become poorer, statement coming from World Bank. Federal government hints at fresh financing to ensure sustainability. PDP lament says many Nigerians can't afford to celebrate Salah. You can find the details on page 2. Canada invites 500 healthcare workers from Nigeria and others. 8 oil workers abducted in Lagos. Ladoja reveals ambition to become Olubadan. You can find the details on page 2. At the downside of the paper, 50 of 70% broadband penetration target achieved, coming from Dan Bata. You can find the details on page 14. We have a picture story. Tinubu and others pray for peace, stability, and prosperity. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, troops rescue 20 adoptees, nab corporates, recover rusted herds in Zamfara. You can find detail of the story inside the paper. And the big story, Nigeria will experience peace, stability, and prosperity, coming from the President Tinubu. Says we have to make sacrifices, shun ethnic and religious rivalries. Shaitima urges Nigerians to imbibe virtues of sacrifice and forgiveness. Tinubu takes courageous step to reposition Nigeria, coming from the APC. All of this story can be found on page 29. Court grant PDP request to withdraw still challenging APC nomination of Governor Nwofuru. You can find that on page 6. 40 Nigerians freed from Libya detention. That's coming from the mission. Immigration elevates 7,000, redeploys 12 controllers. You can find that on page 6. I'm not interested in any other crown except Oluibadan, coming from Ladoja. And also we have, coming from Sierra Leone polls, we have WAEF, AU, ECOWAS, Commonwealth urge calm among citizens. We know they just recently concluded their presidential election. You can find detail on page 7. Governor Adeleke orders arrest of those behind attempt of his life, with the rider urges calm celebration of Eid el-Kabir in peace. Osun Speaker condemns attack on governor. You can find all that inside the paper. And outside of the paper, we have ICPC vows to appeal ruling ordering ex-jam register Ojiri Day's release. You can find that on page 7. And that's all on Daily Independent.
On this day newspaper, Orosanye report, federal government discontinues funding of professional bodies in council. Mixed reaction trail directive. Federal government moves to resolve NSITF management workers dispute. You can find the details on page 8. Research shows 130 countries exploring central bank digital currencies. Military remains loyal to Constitution, and President, coming from the Defense Headquarters, says nation security, stability are its sacred responsibility. The big story on this day, on my watch, Nigeria will know peace, stability, and prosperity. A statement coming from Tinubu. The writer says urges citizens to have faith in country, in themselves, pray for victory in battle against insurgency. Our government will address infrastructure deficits, says Shetima. Saraki, Labaja, Obi, governors, others salute Muslims at Salah. And we have a picture story still showing President Tinubu observes first Eid prayer in Lagos. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On First News newspaper, INEC chairman Walter Emifele, he should be fired, coming from Galadima. You can find that inside the paper. Senate Minority Leader, PDP group rejects Tambuwal. And we have election postponement resulted in census shift, coming from the NPC. And that is the National Population Commission. You read detailed inside the paper. The big story that says exclusive, DSS relocates Bauer to private facility for intense greeting. As suspended EFCC boss remain adamant, refused to write statement in custody. And we have the picture story, President Bola Tinubu observing his year Eid prayer alongside other government officials and dignitaries at the Duda Barracks Prayer Ground, Lagos, on Wednesday, which was yesterday. Still on Eid el-Kabir, it's clear we must make sacrifices, Tinubu tells Nigerians. And we have first subsidy is scam, coming from Governor Abiodun. You want to know why he said that? Read detailed inside the paper. And on Bayelsa poll, Timmy Frank writes the IGP, Alert Silva wants to kill me. And we have political jobbers behind infidelity accusation against my wife, coming from Jack Rich. And we have Madison join Tottenham for 40 million euros. You can find all of that story inside the paper, and that's all on First News newspaper.
On leadership newspaper, Abbas loyalists scramble for 15 juicy committees. CDS, COAS celebrate troops for loyalty and sacrifice. This is on insecurity. You can find the details on page 6. We have a trend. CBN limits daily transaction to 50,000 naira. And phone numbers, World Bank commits $750 million to Nigeria's rural electrification. You can find the details on page 2. Despite shrinking income, Muslims celebrate Salah in style. The big story on the paper, Sultan to political leaders, shed your extravagant lifestyle for Nigeria's sake. We must make necessary sacrifice for the nation, coming from Tinubu. SQ religious tribal identity. You can find the details on page 4. 40 Nigerians regain freedom from Libyan detention. APC PDP urge prayers for Nigeria. This is still on the EL Kabir. Federal government to stop funding professional bodies and council in 2024. You can find the details on page 4. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, no fewer than 74 persons killed by hoodlums in 2023 election. This is coming from the EU, that's European Union, alleges. We recall yesterday we saw they gave their report on the election, which was hopefully their final report on what happened during the 2023 election. And some of the things they said was the fact that the election lacked transparency. It was marred by a lot of conflict and violence, intimidation of voters, amidst many other things that happened during the election. And we saw also INEC saying that they were going to take recommendation and make a redress and also do the right thing henceforth. But then we hope that we don't keep having other observers always coming and then saying something negative. Yeah. I will recall that before the election, the president, which was the former president Buhari, said that fact that the eyes of the world is on Nigeria, because Nigeria is actually going to, Nigeria was going to set the pace for other African countries that were having their own, election. Yeah. Now we see Sierra Leone have had theirs. I think Kenya also, and these other countries in Africa that will be having their election. Of course, I know one of the challenge the INEC chairman stated before the election was the fact that having an election in Nigeria is like having an election in the whole of Africa because of our population. But then we have to look at, was it about our population or was it about other things that went on the ground? Nigerians came out with certain things that they felt didn't go right, such as just like the intimidation, especially in Lagos. We saw it on the paper. Videos were flying on social media that if you're not voting for this party, step aside. People were injured. Properties were being destroyed during that election. And we saw the fact that even some of the REC officials that were sent to the unit, is either during the presidential election, they came in late. Some people were even de-enfranchised because they didn't get to see their names on the names of those who were supposed to be. So a lot of things happened during that election. But we are hoping we have an election which is off-season. I think about 3 or 4 states, that of Kogi, Bayelsa, Imo, and these others. I am hoping, honestly, that something positive will come out of this election. If we have taken our lessons, when I say we, I'm talking about INEC as a commission, because we cannot all go to conduct it. We have given them their responsibility, but let us see them doing their best. Let us truly see them putting their best. And let's hope that we don't see a repeat of this, because every year we have an election, there's always one thing or the other that happens. So we hope that this will not, stop Nigerians from being patriotic and coming out to exercise their civil right to actually vote. So we hope that we see something being done better for this off-season election and subsequent elections that might be coming up.
My only question is, why now? This report could have been out a month after election, because it's going to be the same thing. However, although I have a concern, because when we were during the polls as February and March, the story was different from our international observers compared to what we're now seeing coming from the European Union. Now, I wouldn't like to mix their report together, but I know the Commonwealth had a different report concerning the turnout of our election. The ECOWAS, all the international observers that were present gave a different report. However, this is a unique one coming from the European Union, talking about the lack of transparency, voter intimidation. And I am wondering why now, because this is not a report that should take this long before it gets out of there. after the election, we should be able to have this report earlier than now, because this is also eyewitness report, because they came and witnessed the election, and this report will go a long way, because we've had different stories or side of story from our observers. We in Nigeria had a different thing concerning what we saw for the election, and the previous international observers had a different report coming out, and I'm wondering why the European Union had to wait till now to talk about their own side of the report for the general poll. And I'm just hoping that this doesn't continue like this, that when the report is due to be out, it should be out, because this is important for Nigerians to say that, you know what, we have international observers that truly saw what happened, because it felt Nigerians were lamenting a different thing, and international observers at that time, when they brought out their report, were saying a different thing concerning the election. They said it was fair. We still have such quotes from these international observers of what they saw to be the election, and then this in a lot of way proves to what Nigerians were saying of how this election didn't lack transparency. And I believe that such report can go a long way in the tribunal, because when we look at INEC not keeping to their words, this was one of the major problems we had this election, the lack of transparency, because INEC said one thing and did the other thing, and that is one of the things that didn't sit well with Nigerians, because INEC said this, they didn't deliver, and it already takes away the free and fairness of the election, because you were supposed to keep to your word as a commission that had been given the responsibility to make sure that Nigerian voices are being heard through their vote. So we just hope that this report will be looked into and be more elaborate, and the people that are in need to see it and work with it, because we know the tribunal is still ongoing, and whatever this will add to it, or the result or the outcome of whatever the tribunal would decide on the fate of Nigerians and people that have given their case in the court, I just hope that this will go a long way for that.
You know, talking about the tribunal, I know that tomorrow is when the Tinubu will be actually giving his own take about this whole thing, and hopefully this whole tribunal back and forth should be ending July, August. But then nobody can tell the story better than the owner of the story. That's one thing I believe, and this will tell a lot about what happened during the election, regardless of what international bodies have to say about this. I believe that we know the right way forward. Nigerians know the right thing to do. The commission know the right thing to do. When you say one thing, let us see you following up your word with action at the end of the day. You promised this was going to be an electronic transmission, but we saw a lot of things that went wrong during the election. But then I'm going to come out and say you really did not know what happened. Regardless of what they say, one thing is for certain is that we hope that they will take steps backward, have a review of what you actually do, and then let's be sure that, just like I said, the off-season election, let us see them doing something better. Hopefully, it might not be the same INEC chairman we'll be having in the next 4 years. Maybe it's still him, regardless of what the appointment will look like. But we hope to see somebody that will hold that, that position and actually do the right thing at the end of the day. Well, before I continue with the Nigerian News Direct, the other paper, let's take a break at this moment so we can open the phone lines and then continue with the paper review. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies, and we've been looking at various stories that have been making the lead on our paper, looking at what the UN have to say about the election, and then a lot of story looking at what the president is saying, that everybody have to make a sacrifice so that Nigeria can actually become the great country that we all want it to be. So we'd love to hear what your takes are, what your contributions, what your thoughts are concerning any of the stories. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, because our numbers are displayed on your screen at this moment so you can air your view. And if you feel you'll be tempted, you can actually off your TV set so we can hear you clearly here in the studio. I'm Sela Elisha, and I still have Rachel Tanzi with me. Thanks, Rachel, for doing this with me. All right, let's continue with the paper, which was Nigerian News Direct. Coming from Ojerinde, ICPC reject Federal High Court ruling set to appeal. You can find that story on page 2. Coming, all right, I think we have a call. Hello, good morning.
Studio. Good morning, Mrs. Sele. Good morning, Mrs. Rachel. I'm Sam. I call from Buhari.
All right, Mr. Sam, please go ahead.
Okay, I think my take starts from the point of the course of governance. I mean, the result or the recommendation of the European Union. It's good to know their recommendations, but the question will ask is that will INEC abide by those recommendations? Every election cycle will come, they make their recommendation, but nobody look at it. More so that the recommendation is not more than even the law guiding INEC. We keep going this way because nobody get punished for any actions. It passed INEC chairman or chairman who found guilty and sent to prison. Well, of course, they will be more careful when you come, because you cannot play around with the integrity of the whole country. So, well, the European Union make their own recommendations based on world global best practices, but will not be able to abide by it. More so that this INEC, whatever thing they do is always in the to the victory of the incumbent government. And so they are not willing to go about, except Yaradua, who made effort, who agreed that, yes, I won the election, but it was frauded with, fraud. And so he moved to do recommendation. So for that one, we can only just hope that they will look at it. But I'm not too hopeful about that. Again, our president is telling us to shun ethnic and religious bigotry. Now preaching peace. When it comes to rhetoric, our leaders are the best in the world. We're sweet rhetorics. But this leader must know that the process through which they became a leader, the election, we know all the rank or all the statements that were done. The same Tinubu was there when the issue in Lagos was happening. What did he say? At the heat of this thing, he should have been able to talk to his people. Please, we shouldn't be that way. You cannot go through this in a very bad process, and you want us to forget easily. So we know where our situation starts from. The leaders are our problem. They divided us in order to become a leader, and once they are there, they start preaching peace. But we cannot forget yesterday the process that brought them. Finally, let me talk on the sacrifice that they are urging us to make. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. This is what we have already been hearing since 1999 when they came in. The removal of subsidy has always been a recurrent decimal. But what are the gains of those sacrifices that we have made? You are hearing of a lot of corruption. What is happening to them? You know, when it comes to sacrifice, it takes everybody. But here it's only the poor masses. I would have wanted Tinubu or anybody now to say, okay, we want to cost of governance. Let us look 7 years back in Senegal. Because in an attempt to cut the cost of governance, the bicameral house in Senegal were cut into one, meaning that they say, let us do away with the Senate arm and deal with only the House of Rep. This is the way we know that leaders are ready to help the country. They can also look at cutting down their salaries and allowances for the sake of this country. We cannot continue to be the poor masses. They should be able to look at us. So theirs is just rhetoric. We pray that a leader will be given to us that will not know that, yes, the masses are the benchmark of a country. Thank you, and do have a good morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sam, for that very great contribution. We hope that the relevant authorities talking about the government will hear the plight and the cry of the people and actually do the right thing. Yeah. Still on Nigerian News Direct, we will double our pace at developing oil coming from the governor of the state, Makinde. And the big story, APC, PDP, Labour Party trade wars on impact of Tinubu's policies. With the rider be patient and ready to make sacrifices, President Tinubu, APC urge Nigerians. Tinubu policy are anti-people coming from the PDP. Policies are making life harder for Nigerians coming from the LP. PDP lacks capacity to achieve what Tinubu achieved in 3 weeks coming from the presidency. All that can be found on page 3. And we have controversy over assassination allegation by Governor Adeleke. How I killed my brother after 120,000 naira ransom. Suspect opens up. You can find all of that story inside the paper. We have few picture story. One showing the president and meets other governor political holders during the prayers. And downside we also have another picture story. You can do well to grab the paper and read details of stories of interest to you.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Obi of Onitsha heads committee to harmonize Igbo culture. Tinubu asks Nigerians to make more sacrifices, says country will experience peace, stability, and prosperity. Why I won't accept beaded crown, only authentic Olubadan crown coming from Ladoja. PDP APC trade blames over alleged attack on Adeleke on prayer ground. Ex-Senate spokesperson debunks claim. Structure of my government will soon start taking shape, Makinde assures. Archbishop tax NAS advocates end of election cases before inauguration. Wants 4 Buhari ministers probed. You can find the details on page 8. Obi Fitz Muslim says love unity will take Nigeria to desired height. Atiku Wike fight shifts to Senate over minority leader's seat. Ex-Rivers governor mobilizes against Tambuwal. At the downside of the paper, Tinubu's London trip not for medical checkup insists APC, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Governor Adeleke prevented from praying in Oshobo Eid ground. You can find more detail of the story inside the paper. The big story, Niger Delta ex-militants hand federal government 7-day ultimatum. You want to know why they gave them that? You can start reading the story on the front page and continue to read more inside the paper. And on Senate presidency, Kalu acknowledges Akpabio's clean victory. And we have SAC board chairman in Akwa Ibom still sitting tight. You can find detail inside the paper. Federal government will address infrastructural deficit nationwide, coming from the Vice. All right. Hello. Good morning.
I want to talk of issue of security.
All right. Go ahead, please, sir.
Security has been a very big problem that everybody is facing. I think the issue of security is more worse than the removal of subsidy in the country, because we have been facing it before the subsidy of FA comes. So if the army man that is being put into that office to handle issue of security, not just what he's saying on newspaper publication. I think he has done us good. We are facing a lot of security challenges all over Nigeria, that you cannot stay in your house and be safe again. The neighborhood security, the security that federal government is paying every month, is unable to do what they should, that they draw it back to the neighborhood security. Neighborhood, here in Southeast, we have what we call the Budango in order to help police and army, and yet nothing is going on. So they should wake up from their responsibility, because it's what federal government they vowed. They vowed to take life and property, to save life and property, but they are not doing what they promised Nigeria to. So I pray that the security officer should do what he should in order to help we Nigeria to stay safer and do our normal business. Then coming to the what our president is saying, that he's preaching for peace. Everybody will preach for peace when he gets what he wants, because without peace he cannot enjoy the seat as he should. So he's doing what he's supposed to do. but he forgot the process that put him into that office. It was a fraudulent process. I witnessed it. It's not just somebody is telling me. I witnessed what happened within my area. So it was what happened to my area that I can be able to use and figure out what happened in another man's area. It was a fraudulent one. So if he is preaching for peace, he should go back to the drawing board. The INEC, the process used to become the president is very, very wrong.
Thank you.
And you cannot expect anything to come out from that process. When the foundation is faulty, what do you expect the righteous to do? The foundation is faulty and they cannot do anything. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for that contribution. And I think that's all on the paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, I am not interested in any other crown except Olubadan. Gives reason why he was furious with Makinde before 2023 election, coming from Ladoja. You can find the details on page 25. Oil workers adopted in Lagos. The big story on the paper: reforms may affect manufacturing household income. This is a statement coming from experts on the current economic situation in Nigeria. Government debt to hit 90 trillion naira. Forex reform excites foreign investors. We must make sacrifice for Nigeria to prosper. Statement coming from President Tinubu. Middle Belt Group, NNPP, others differ on EU report. This is still on elections. Senate Minority Leaders, PDP group rejects Tambuwa. Adeleke Basiru at war over sitting arrangement at Eid Ground. Political talks attempted to attack governor, coming from a spokesperson. CBN sets contactless cumulative daily transaction limit to 50,000 naira. You can find the details on page 6, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Voice of Liberty, with a big story on Eid, Nigeria will prosper under my presidency. Tinubu assures Nigerians to have faith in God that the country will experience peace, stability, and prosperity. Coming from the UN, Northeast one step away from famine. And we have NNPC fuel subsidy, a scam that cost Nigeria huge revenue. You can find that story inside the paper. And we have $76 million cash haul. Aisha Adiroko was permanent SEC accountant and officer. She's under probe, coming from the NDIC. And the World Bank is saying federal government will save 11 trillion naira from subsidy removal. 7.1 million poor Nigerians to lose 5,000 naira monthly. You can find detail inside the story. And I think the report coming from the UN, Rachel, talking about the Northeast one step away from famine. It's not just the Northeast.
Not the Northeast.
Even though it's more severe because of maybe the insecurity, the insurgents that is high there. So possibly because farmers cannot go there. But let's take a look at even the Northwest, the likes of Kaduna downside.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened there. Farmers cannot even make it to their farms. We've heard of people who died. Let's take a look at Benue State. Farmers have been killed. Come down to Plateau State. Farmers have been killed. So all of this thing can actually take all of these zones one step to farming. And I do not know what each of the government is planning to do about curbing this. But I'm happy the president have assured Nigerians on a very good day like this that what he's going to work towards a stable and a prosperous Nigeria. So we look forward to seeing some of the measures he will put. All we hope is that some of these measures should not actually injure Nigerians while actually trying to heal them, because obviously that's what most of the things have been doing. So we hope to see that the measures that will be put in place, the policies that will be put in place by the president, by each of the stakeholders, will be policies that will actually lift up Nigerians, those who have been living in the poverty line. Let them get up there. Because right now, in fact, right now in Nigeria, it's either you're poor or rich. Because it looks as if we no longer have people who are in the middle class anymore. So we hope something will be done about it so we can change all of these things. And then we have a very stable economy eventually.
Yes, sir. There are just so many promises coming from the president. We'll just wait and see how things turn out, because in the end, we want results, not just words.
All right. So let us take the last paper, which is the Business Day, Rachel.
On the Business Day newspaper, the big story: 4.4 trillion naira cash bonanza for federal government orders as FAAC gets boost. FMCG firms hasting backward integration project to curb foreign exchange challenges. Nigerian investors eye $10 billion West African petrol market. Blackwell joins MTN orders to pressure IHS for reforms. You can find the details on page 2. China affords Nigeria super target status. And at the downside of the paper, Nigerians suspend travel plans to US, Europe as airfares soar. Summer travelers shift to Egypt, Rwanda, and South Africa. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 2. And that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Well, I hope we'll be having summer travelers coming down to Nigeria as well, to Rachel. Thank you so much for doing this.
Always a pleasure, Sally.
Yeah, thank you to those who called in this morning. Thank you to the crew members, our producer, the general manager, and everyone, including the Equa executive. Until we come here again, do have a blessed day ahead.